Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're cracking open the communication book by Michael Krogerus and Roman Tschäppeler.
Oh, yeah.
Think of it as a crash course in getting your point across, packed with 44 communication concepts.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to sift through and highlight the most useful ones for you. So get ready for some serious aha moments.
Yeah, this book really is like a Swiss Army knife for communication.
Yeah.
Whether you're prepping for a job interview or trying to nail a presentation or just want to have more meaningful conversations,
Right.
there's something in here for everyone.
Okay, let's dive in. I'm always fascinated by the psychology of persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually get people to say yes?
Right.
The book dives into Robert Cialdini's 6 principles of persuasion.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, some of them are a little sneaky.
Well, they're definitely rooted in understanding human behavior.
Yeah.
Take the scarcity principle, for example.
Okay.
We're all more likely to jump on something if we think it's about to disappear.
Right.
Limited time offers exclusive deals. They trigger that fear of missing out.
Oh, I'm totally guilty of falling for that.
Yeah.
But the book points out that this principle goes way beyond marketing.
Right.
It can even be applied to things like change management.
Yeah.
People are often resistant to change because they're afraid of losing something familiar.
Exactly. So if you're trying to get someone on board with a new idea or a change in process, highlighting what they stand to lose by sticking with the old way can be surprisingly effective.
Interesting.
It's all about tapping into those underlying motivations.
So how do we use this knowledge for good instead of evil?
Well, the book emphasizes that these principles should be used ethically.
Okay.
It's not about manipulating people, but rather understanding what makes them tick.
Right.
And sometimes that means appealing to their sense of urgency or highlighting the potential downsides of inaction.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, enough of the sneaky tactics.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something we all experience: meetings.
Uh-oh.
This book breaks down different meeting types and why so many of them go off the rails. I'm sure we've all been in those meetings that feel like a total waste of time.
Oh, absolutely. And the book actually quotes Seth Godin on this.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of being crystal clear about the purpose of a meeting right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Is it to share information?
Yeah.
Brainstorm solutions, get a decision.
Right.
Being upfront about this saves everyone time and frustration.
And speaking of time, there's this brilliant 15-minute rule in the book
Oh, yeah.
based on Parkinson's law,
Mm-hmm.
which says that work expands to fill the time allotted.
Right.
So keeping meetings short and focused actually forces people to be more productive.
Makes sense.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen a meeting drag on for an hour when it could have been wrapped up in 15 minutes.
I think we've all been there. The book also suggests using a timer to keep everyone on track.
Right.
And this question rule is a game changer.
Okay.
It's about asking the right questions at the right time to guide the discussion.
Okay.
Start with clarifying questions to make sure everyone's on the same page. Then move to process questions to figure out how you'll get things done.
Right.
And finally, use challenging questions to poke holes in assumptions and really dive deep.
It's like a roadmap for a productive meeting. I'm definitely going to try that.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about leading a team, the book also has a section on how good bosses communicate.
Mm-hmm.
One principle that stuck out to me was don't criticize, give praise.
Yes. This isn't about sugarcoating things or avoiding constructive feedback.
Okay.
It's about framing feedback in a way that motivates and inspires the team.
Right.
The book links this to the feedback method,
Yeah.
especially the concept of appreciative inquiry,
Mm.
which focuses on strengths and potential rather than dwelling on weaknesses.
That's a really interesting shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, you're asking
Yeah.
what's working well and how can we build on that?
Exactly. And this approach can be incredibly powerful in building trust and encouraging growth.
But what about when negative feedback is necessary? It's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Of course. The book acknowledges that there are times when difficult conversations are unavoidable.
Yeah.
But even then, it encourages leaders to be mindful of their approach and deliver feedback in a way that is respectful and constructive,
Mm-hmm.
always focusing on the desired outcome.
This is all great stuff for anyone who leads a team.
Yeah.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the power of storytelling.
Okay.
I was surprised to see this in a communication book,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes so much sense.
Storytelling is essential to good communication.
Yeah.
Stories tap into our emotions, make information more memorable, and help us connect with others on a deeper level.
Right.
The book actually draws a parallel between the structure of classic fairy tales and the way we structure narratives in our everyday lives.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of Chris Anderson's rules for TED Talks,
Yeah.
which also emphasize the power of sharing ideas in a way that people will want to tell others about.
Right.
It's about making your message contagious.
Exactly. It's about crafting a narrative that resonates with people and sticks with them long after they've heard it.
So we've covered persuasion meetings, leadership, and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how these concepts all weave together.
Yeah.
But before we move on, I want to touch on something that's become increasingly important in our globalized world,
Okay.
navigating cultural differences.
Yes. The communication book delves into Richard D. Lewis's cultural types,
Okay.
which categorize communication styles based on cultural norms.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating how these differences can impact everything from business negotiations to casual conversations.
One example that really stuck with me was the one about the taciturn Finn.
Oh, yeah.
It illustrates how cultural stereotypes, while not always accurate,
Right.
can shed light on the diverse ways people communicate.
Right. And the book reminds us that these cultural types are not rigid categories,
Okay.
but rather spectrums.
Right.
And that understanding these nuances can help us bridge cultural gaps and communicate more effectively.
Mhm.
It's about being adaptable and respectful of different communication styles.
Okay, so we've learned how to get people to say yes, how to run effective meetings, how to be a better boss, how to weave compelling narratives, and how to navigate cultural differences.
Right.
But what about what's going on beneath the surface of our communication?
Right.
What's lurking beneath the tip of the iceberg?
That's where things get really interesting. We're going to delve into the iceberg theory next.
Okay, great. I'm excited to hear about it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the communication book.
Okay.
Last time we left off talking about the hidden depths of communication.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that iceberg, shall we?
Ooh, I love a good metaphor. So remind me, what's the iceberg theory all about?
It's the idea that what we see on the surface,
Okay.
the words people say, their facial expressions, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, there's this whole mass of unspoken stuff.
Okay.
Emotions, past experiences, cultural influences,
Right.
even our own unconscious biases.
So it's not just about what we say, but how we say it and all the baggage we bring to the conversation.
Exactly. And the iceberg theory helps us understand why we sometimes react more strongly to how something is said than to the actual words being used.
Now, that's interesting.
It's because those subtle cues,
Yeah.
tone of voice, body language,
Right.
can trigger all sorts of emotional responses.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, it's not what you say, but how you say it.
Right.
The book also talks about how our own unconscious biases can influence how we interpret what others are saying.
Absolutely. We all have these mental shortcuts we use to make sense of the world. And sometimes those shortcuts can lead to misunderstandings,
Right.
especially in cross-cultural communication.
It's a good reminder to be aware of our own biases and to really listen to what others are saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Yeah.
Okay, so the iceberg theory explains why communication can be so tricky.
Right.
But what about those times when we feel like we can't speak up at all?
You're talking about the spiral of silence? Okay.
This concept explains why people often hesitate to share their opinions if they feel like they're in the minority.
Yeah.
They don't want to rock the boat or be seen as different.
I've definitely felt that pressure before, especially in a group setting. It's like this fear of being judged or ostracized. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. I think most of us have at some point.
Yeah.
But the book makes a really important point about the dangers of this silence.
Okay.
When dissenting voices are silenced, it can lead to a false sense of consensus.
Right.
And that can stifle creativity and innovation.
It's a reminder that we need to create spaces where everyone feels safe to share their perspectives, even if those perspectives are unpopular.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the hidden depths of communication, the power of silence, and the importance of speaking up.
Right.
But what about the actual words we use? Do words really have that much power?
They absolutely do. The communication book delves into J.L. Austin's speech act theory,
Okay.
which argues that words can be more than just information.
They can be actions.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Think about the act of declaring a couple husband and wife.
Okay.
Those words spoken by an authorized person in the right context
Right.
have the power to change their legal and social status. That's a speech act.
Wow, that's a powerful example. So it's not just about the words themselves,
Right.
but the intention and the consequences of those words.
Exactly. And Austin distinguishes between different types of meaning.
Okay.
There's the literal meaning of the words,
Mhm.
the intended action, and the actual effect those words have.
Right.
So when someone says, I promise,
Mhm.
they're not just conveying information, they're making a commitment.
This is making me think about how careful we need to be with our words. They carry so much weight.
They really do. And that brings us to another fascinating concept,
Okay.
the social judgment theory.
Okay.
It explains why we're persuaded by some arguments and not by others,
Mhm.
why some of our opinions are so deeply ingrained and others are more flexible.
Okay, so why are some people so stubborn in their beliefs?
Well, the social judgment theory suggests that we all have this anchor point for our opinions.
Okay.
It's like a core belief or attitude that's resistant to change.
Mm-hmm.
And when we encounter new information,
Yeah.
we evaluate it based on how close it is to our anchor point.
So if someone presents an argument that aligns with our core beliefs, we're more likely to be swayed.
Right.
But if it challenges our deeply held views, we tend to resist, even if the argument is logically sound.
Precisely. And the theory also identifies a room for maneuver around that anchor point.
Okay.
These are alternative viewpoints that we might be willing to consider,
Yeah.
even if they don't perfectly align with our core beliefs.
It's like having a comfort zone for our opinions.
Okay.
We're open to ideas within that zone, but we become more defensive as those ideas move further away.
Exactly. And the third factor is ego involvement.
Okay.
This refers to how personally invested we are in a particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
The more our ego is involved, the less likely we are to be persuaded by opposing viewpoints.
So if someone's entire identity is wrapped up in a particular belief, any challenge to that belief might feel like a personal attack.
Yes, the social judgment theory provides valuable insights into the dynamics of persuasion
Right.
and the factors that influence our willingness to change our minds.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding the other person's perspective
Yeah.
and recognizing that their beliefs are often deeply rooted in their values and experiences.
This has been eye-opening.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've explored the power of words, the dynamics of persuasion, and the importance of being aware of our own biases.
Right.
But what about those times when we mess up and need to apologize?
The Art of the Apology, the communication book, dedicates a whole section to this.
Okay.
And it's full of practical tips for making amends effectively.
I'm all ears. Apologizing can be so tricky.
One of the key takeaways is to focus on taking responsibility for your actions.
Okay.
Use I statements to acknowledge your role in the situation instead of saying, I'm sorry you're upset,
Right.
which shifts the focus to the other person's feelings.
Right.
Say something like, I'm sorry that I hurt you.
That's a subtle but important distinction. It's about owning your actions and expressing empathy for the impact they had on the other person.
Exactly. And the book also cautions against justifying your actions.
Oh.
While it's tempting to explain why you did something,
Right.
a justification can undermine the sincerity of your apology.
It's like saying, I'm sorry, but, which basically negates the whole apology. So what's the best way to offer an explanation without sounding defensive?
The book suggests sharing your reasons for your actions, but acknowledging that they were still hurtful.
Okay.
It's about being transparent without minimizing the impact of your behavior.
That makes sense. Any other apology pitfalls we should avoid?
Oh, definitely avoid but sentences.
Okay.
Something like, I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to hurt you.
Right.
Sounds more like an excuse than a genuine apology.
It's those little linguistic choices that can make all the difference. Any other surprising tips from the book?
One that really stood out to me was to avoid asking for forgiveness.
Oh, interesting.
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but the book suggests that focusing on making amends and changing your behavior is more effective than seeking absolution.
So it's not about putting the burden on the other person to forgive you,
Right.
but rather about demonstrating your commitment to doing better.
Precisely. Actions speak louder than words, especially when it comes to rebuilding trust.
Wow. This is making me rethink my whole approach to apology. Now, I'm curious, does the book address those little white lies we tell, to avoid awkward situations or to spare someone's feelings?
It actually has a whole section on the ethics of lying.
Okay.
And it gets pretty granular, breaking down lies into categories based on who benefits.
Okay, this I have to hear. Welcome back to the deep dive.
So last time we were talking about white lies.
Right.
Is the book giving us permission to fudge the truth?
Not exactly. It actually dives into the ethics of lying.
Okay.
breaking them down into categories based on who benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty interesting framework.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Break it down for me. Well, the book identifies 4 types of lies.
Okay.
White lies, which benefit the person being lied to.
Okay.
Gray lies, which benefit both parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
Black lies, which benefit only the liar.
Okay.
And red lies, which benefit no one.
So a white lie would be like telling a friend their new haircut looks great, even if you think it's a bit of a disaster.
Exactly. You're sparing their feelings and maybe avoiding an awkward confrontation.
Right.
A gray lie might be something like agreeing to go to a party you're not that excited about
Yeah.
to make your partner happy. You both benefit in some way.
Okay, that makes sense. What about those black lies, the ones that only benefit the liar?
Think of those classic examples like denying you ate the last cookie when you totally did.
Right.
Or maybe exaggerating your qualifications on a job application.
Those are definitely self-serving lies. And red lies, the ones that benefit no one. Those sound kind of scary.
They can be spreading rumors or misinformation.
Right.
Even if you don't personally gain anything from it, that would fall into the red lie category.
It's amazing how the book provides a framework for thinking about honesty and deception.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always black and white, is it?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But it's important to be aware of the potential consequences of even those little white lies.
Yeah.
They can erode trust and create a slippery slope.
So honesty really is the best policy most of the time.
The book seems to suggest that. Now, switching gears a bit,
Okay.
I was really intrigued by the section on the power of brevity.
Okay.
In a world of information overload, maybe less is more.
I'm all about that. Sometimes I feel like I could talk for hours.
Right.
But maybe I should try being more concise.
Yeah.
What did the book say about this?
Well, it introduces this concept called the 6-word rule,
Okay.
which is the challenge of summarizing your message, your story,
Mm-hmm.
or even your life philosophy in just 6 words.
Wow, that's a tall order. 6 words. But it's kind of brilliant. It forces you to get to the heart of what you want to say.
Exactly. And the book uses some great examples, like Hemingway's famous 6-word story.
Okay.
For sale,
Yeah.
baby shoes, never worn.
Oh, wow. That's heartbreaking. So much emotion packed into just 6 words. It's like a tiny punch to the gut.
It really is. And it demonstrates how brevity can actually amplify the emotional impact of a message.
Mm-hmm.
The book also shares examples from Larry Smith's 6-word memoirs project,
Okay.
where people from all walks of life sum up their experiences in just 6 words.
I'm going to have to check that out. It sounds like a fascinating exercise in self-reflection.
It is. And it reminds us that sometimes the most powerful messages are the simplest ones.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've explored so many facets of communication, persuasion, storytelling, cultural differences, the power of words, the importance of honesty, the art of apologizing, and now the beauty of brevity.
It's been a journey.
It really has.
Yeah,
It's really made me think about how I communicate and how I can be more effective.
I agree. And it all comes back to being more mindful,
Right.
more intentional, and more empathetic in our interactions. Communication is at the heart of everything we do, and the communication book gives us the tools to navigate this complex world with greater clarity and confidence.
Absolutely. So for our listeners out there, what's resonating with you from this deep dive? What are you going to take away and apply to your own life?
Maybe it's those sneaky persuasion tactics we all fall for, or perhaps it's a newfound appreciation for the power of storytelling. Or maybe it's just a reminder to listen more deeply and to choose our words with care.
And as promised, here's a 10-point summary of the communication book to help you on your journey to becoming a better communicator.
Okay.
Number 1.
Master the art of persuasion.
Right.
Utilize Cialdini's 6 principles: reciprocity, authority,
Yeah.
consistency, consensus, scarcity, and liking,
Mm-hmm.
to influence others effectively.
Number 2.
Transform meetings into productive sessions.
Right.
Employ the 15-minute rule, the question rule,
Right.
and other strategies to make meetings shorter, more focused, and result-oriented.
Number 3.
Lead with exceptional communication. Inspire and motivate your team by practicing what you preach, giving praise genuinely, and offering constructive feedback.
Number 4.
Harness the power of storytelling. Weave facts into captivating narratives to engage your audience, make information memorable, and create a lasting impact.
Number 5.
Become a skilled negotiator. Find win-win solutions using principled negotiation techniques,
Mm-hmm.
separating the person from the problem and focusing on shared interests.
Number 6.
Bridge cultural divides. Understand and adapt to different communication styles across cultures,
Right.
using Lewis's cultural types as a guide.
Number 7.
Delve into the depths of communication.
Yeah.
Recognize the influence of the unconscious as revealed by the iceberg theory.
Right.
And be aware of the unspoken messages conveyed through body language and tone.
Number 8.
Find and use your voice.
Yeah.
Overcome the spiral of silence and speak your truth even when it's challenging, contributing your unique perspective to the conversation.
Number 9.
Understand the weight of words. Remember that words can be actions, as explained by the speech act theory.
Yeah.
And choose your language with intention and awareness of its potential consequences.
And finally, number 10.
Embrace the power of brevity. Make every word count by practicing conciseness, using the 6-word rule as inspiration, and conveying your message with clarity and impact.
This deep dive has given us all a lot to think about.
It has.
Remember, communication is an art form, and we're all artists in our own way. What masterpiece are you creating? Until next time, keep those conversations flowing.